Hi students, my name is Sunaina and I am here to teach you the subject of social science. Today we would be learning a very long and extensive chapter, chapter 3 of history, called the impact of British rule in India. Students, now before we learn the chapter, let us first understand what are all the topics that we would be learning in this chapter. We will learn about administrative and judicial system brought in by the British rule. For example, the civil services, the judicial system, the police system and the military system. Then we will learn about the various land tax policies like the permanent zamindari system, mahalwari system and the riotwari system. Then we will learn about the modern education brought about by the British, especially the work of Lord Macaulay and the Woods Commission. Lastly, we will learn about various laws during the British rule, from the regulating law to the Pitt's India law and the charter laws. Let's begin with the administrative and judicial system. Students, a little background before we go into learning into detail. Before the British established political supremacy over India and captured all territories, there were various small kingdoms. Each one ruled in their own way. So there was no uniform administration throughout the country. There was no common army, common police, common lawyers, common IAS officers or administrators for the country as a whole. Every king ruled in whatever way they wanted. So the British brought in uniformity in the administration. Now let's see how. The British East India Company fulfilled its commercial needs in the beginning as a trading company. So when British started, they just started as a trade company in India. Then they observed the fractured political landscape. They saw that in India, all kings are trying to fight against each other and each one wants to come one above the other. So they observed the hundreds of ruling dynasties were competing with each other and they wanted to exploit or make the situation to their advantage. And we saw they took advantage by participating in the Carnatic Wars, Battle of Plassey, Battle of Buxar, the Anglo-Maratha Wars, and they took advantage of the situation and they became the rulers of India. They implemented divide and rule policy. So if they would see the Marathas are fighting with the Nizam of Hyderabad, they would encourage them to fight. They never fostered the feeling of unity among them. They slowly dominated all the rulers and subjugated them. They achieved complete domination of India. And they employed many techniques for that. They did war and they also did negotiation. Negotiation techniques like subsidiary alliance and doctrine of lapse, if you remember from the previous chapter. After getting India under their control by employing various clever methods, they wanted to now become very strong. They wanted to increase their strength over India permanently. So at that time, India didn't have this concept of being one single nation. So India was devoid. Devoid means without the concept of one nation. India didn't have the one nation concept and it had various small kingdoms. The British integrated the whole country under one administrative and one political structure. Uniform education, uniform judiciary, same way of courts. Like if you have a civil case, if you have a criminal case, where you go? How will the courts be? Which court will be higher? Which court will be lower? What will be the administration method? Throughout the country they brought uniformity. There was uniformity even in the land taxes, trade and agriculture. They started personally regulating and administering all these laws. So now we will first look at civil services. Who introduced civil services? What is this civil services? Students, you have heard about this post, IAS officer. How many of you dream to be one? So this whole service was set up by the British. Who in particular? Lord Cornwallis introduced the administration of civil services. What is the system? Where employees are appointed for the purpose of trade of East India Company in the beginning. So in the beginning, the main purpose of these officers was to take care or administer the trade for the English East India Company. Later, these employees were also given greater responsibilities. Now, why suddenly there was a need for this exam? So, these employees were even allowed to trade. Because they were allowed to trade, there was a lot of corrupt practices that were taking place. They were trying to trade illegally. Like they would trade personally under their name, but they are supposed to trade only in the name of the English East India Company. So, because of these corrupt practices, the British government in England enforced this act, the Regulating Act in India in the year 1773. The name as it suggests, regulate means administer very closely, regulate, look at the activities and administer it. In 1800, Lord Cornwallis, who had initiated the civil services for India, he also opened Fort William College in Calcutta for the benefit of people aspiring to join civil services. So in this college, they would give training for people and the other candidates who want to become civil servants. But he did not get the support of English East India Company's directors. As a result, all the appointments till 1853 were done by the directors. So the directors would directly employ whoever they felt to be the best fit in the civil services post. But after 1853, they started the process of competitive exams. This, however, did not benefit Indians much. Why? Because they had a lot of rules. Like for Indians, the maximum age would be 19, and they would make it compulsory that you have to go to London to write the exam, and they would make it compulsory for you to know the languages of Latin and so on. So they would make it very difficult for an Indian to pass through the competitive examination method. The British, however, felt that this was right to do because they suspected the efficiency of Indians. But Lord Cornwallis argued all the natives of Hindustan are completely corrupt, and as a result they are not worth giving jobs. So he used to say, no, we have made these rules and they are right, because they felt Indians were not so efficient, and he declared that they were corrupt. Do you all think this was fair? No, I think this was very unfair. Now let's look at the judicial system brought about by the British. A new judicial system started finding roots when the British rule in India began taking over from the Mughal rule. So before the British came, there was just the king's law. Anybody who wanted justice, there would be a bell outside the king's court. They would ring the bell and they would ask to be presented in front of the king, and the king or the sir would give justice. At the village level, there would be a sarpanch who would probably give justice based on their own sense of right and wrong. There was no written book, there were no written laws to be followed. So let's see how did this begin for the British. After the Battle of Buxar, the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam handed over the Diwani rights. What is the meaning of Diwani rights, if you remember? The authority to collect the land tax to the British. What is Diwani is almost asked every year in your examination. With this, what came into picture? Dual administration. A quick recap, what is dual administration? I told you all there will be two administrators. The taxes, the money will be collected by the British, but the responsibility of giving facilities to the citizens, of taking care of justice would remain with the Indian ruler. So there were two administrators, one for taking and one for giving. The dual administration came into effect in Bengal region. This was also called as dual governance. So under this, what happens? The authority to collect land tax, civil and judiciary were given to Indian officials, whereas the British retained the authority of managing the revenue collected. So you Indian rulers will see to it law is enforced, everything is taken care of properly, they have collected taxes from all the Indians, but after the monies come, British will decide what do we do with the money, how do we spend it. Again, do you think this is fair? I also feel this is unfair as well. Later on, British thought of bringing more centralized judicial system. What is the meaning of centralized judicial system? In the centralized judicial system, there is uniformity in courts. At the lower level, there will be the civil court and the criminal court, and when you go at the highest level, there will be the Supreme Court. The British attained this by implementing new judicial system in India. They made a plan, and this plan was made by Warren Hastings. Students, you should know each important name with each of the following reforms. Like for civil services, it's Lord Cornwallis. For judicial system, it is Warren Hastings. You should know these names perfectly well. He took over the administration as governor in 1772. He said we will have two types of courts in every single district. A Diwani Adalat is the civil court and a Fauzdari Adalat as a criminal court. So civil court, Diwani Adalat, and the criminal court, Fauzdari Adalat. In these civil courts, what do we mean by civil? Any matter related to property, any conflict between two people, all these matters are in civil court. In criminal court, they would discuss matters of murder and so on. In these civil courts, Hindus were dispensed justice as per the Hindu scriptures and the Muslims as per the Shariat law. Slowly, the British legal procedures were introduced in the criminal courts. So, for civil cases, they followed the sacred texts of each religion, and in criminal courts, they followed the law as per the British norms. Civil court came under the administration of the European officers. Though the criminal courts were under the control of Qazis, they were functioning under the supervision of European officers. So there used to be one Qazi, but above him there would be a European officer. Students, let's quickly summarize the civil services and the judicial system. So civil services were introduced by Lord Cornwallis. He suggested that we should have a college, but it was opposed by the directors of the East India Company. And finally, after 1853, they introduced competitive exams, but it was not favorable for Indians, but Cornwallis argued that Indians are corrupt and they are not efficient. Then we came to study judicial system. In the judicial system, we saw that Warren Hastings, when he took over as an administrator, he wanted to form the new judicial system. So they established civil court and the criminal court. They administered civil cases as per the Hindu law and the Muslim law of Shariat, but in the criminal court, they kept the procedure of the British. While there was a Qazi in the court, above him there was always a European officer. Now students, we will look at the police system. The police are in charge of maintaining internal law. If there is an external country that attacks us, the military, the army takes care of it. But internally, to maintain order, we have the police system. Again, who implemented this? Lord Cornwallis implemented this. He is responsible both. Just remember, IAS, civil services, IPS is Indian Police Service. For both IAS, IPS, who is responsible? Lord Cornwallis. Okay, don't forget, don't get confused as well. He created a new post of Superintendent of Police, SP. I know a lot of you dream to be SPs as well. So students, each district was divided into station, and who was responsible for every single station? The Kotwal. Whereas in the village, it was under the care of the Chowkidar. So they had to see to it that there are no thefts happening, and if a theft happened, they were accountable for crimes, and other law violations at a village level. There was a drought. Drought means severe famine, no rain, in the year of 1770. And this led to a lot of breakdown in the law and order situation. So the entire police system was brought under the control of British officers. After this law and order situation was disturbed because of the drought, people were frustrated, they wanted to fight, they wanted to revolt. Because of this, the British officers completely took over the police system. So the system of appointing British magistrates started in 1781. So now all the police officers would be British at the higher post. The police officers were under the power of these British magistrates. The police system underwent a lot of changes that were very continuous. Finally, in 1861, the police law was established. Students, whenever we learn any of these laws or any of the commissions, we try and understand, did they allow Indians into the system? Did they give them adequate power? So while this police law is the base of good law and order administration, it still did not give adequate access to Indians to become police officers. In 1902, the Police Commission law allowed the appointment of suitable educational qualifications for the post of police officers. Now they looked at qualification for being appointed as a police officer, but they still managed to continue their discriminatory practices against the Indians. Now students, let us look at the military system under the British. Military was the foundation, was the very base for establishing the British Empire and to ensure it exists and remains strong. They took extraordinary measure and care to control this well. The military was the base, the very foundation of administration. The British appointed Indians for the military and took the entire India under their control with the help of the military. But how did they manage to remain supreme? The military could anytime fight with them, right? Could revolt against them, but how did they manage to remain supreme? They protected their supremacy internally within, that is amongst the Indians, and even outside with the help of the military. But do you think the top military officers were Indians? No, they were all British again. The Indians could only reach the rank of a Subedar. The highest post available to them was that of a Subedar. Most of the Indians were just given the rank of a coolie soldier. The British government accepted the recommendation of Peel in 1857, and based on these recommendations, the military system was redesigned. Only for one mark it's important, according to whose recommendations the military commission was redesigned, the Peel Commission. So this brings us to the end of military system.